Did you know from 2000 to 2009, the Rams drafted 86 players and only hit on 8? From the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Chirozia.
Out there, let's blow them off the line of scrimmage. Headline, Los Angeles.
Live from the Ram Cave, I'm Joe Chirozia, and this is RamView, the February 21st, 2024 edition, brought to you by Kistler Law Firm. Injured in an auto accident? Need help? Got questions? Call Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. That's Kistler Law at 661-206-6990. And check out KistlerLawFirm.com. That's one word, KistlerLawFirm.com. Kistler Law, they've been fighting for you since 92. And by Temple City Auto Repair. Having some auto issues? Get yourself some John and Henry at TempleCityAutoRepair.com. And of course, by Granite Ridge Christian Camp, a place where your life can change. So we've got some draft talk. We got some Brian Allen talk. We got some NFL talk. But I talked about the NBA All-Star Game last show. And honestly, folks, I'm not going to talk about the NBA. It's called RamView. But it's cool. It's cool. I don't mind answering it. What do I not like about the NBA the most? And I'll tell you, when someone asks me, and it's they're not tough. They're soft. They're just soft players. And I think LeBron James is a great player. But I think if LeBron James had to live truly by what they called the Jordan rules, or had to really face those bad boys, or even go down the lane on Kevin McHale and some of those hackmeisters with the Boston Celtics in the East, I don't think his career would have lasted as long. And I don't think mentally and emotionally, if he was put in that era, he could survive. He's not tough. He's just not tough. He's not a killer. Kobe kind of bridged that. Kobe was a killer. They're talking to Jason Tatum, and there's nothing about Jason Tatum that tells you he's a killer on the basketball court. Best player in the NBA, it's Jokic, right? It's Jokic. He's the best player in the NBA by far right now. And we can get into that some other time. Maybe I'll go back to doing my column online called FanView, and we could talk about all sports. But, folks, this is about the NFL, and this is about the Rams. I'm happy to answer those other questions and around the NFL and other places, but just want to let you know, you're asking me what I thought, and I did share a lot about the All-Star Game at the last show. So we'll get into all that. The Rams, the big news this afternoon was the Rams announced they've released center Brian Allen. It's not a surprise. I get it because it's a smart move. You save more, and you're only hurt about 3 rocks in terms of dead money, and so it's a wise business move. I was honking for him to stay, even though it was a long shot, because I want the depth. I really want the depth on the offensive line. He was drafted 4th round, 111th overall out of Michigan State. He's one of just 2 centers the Rams drafted in the whole Les Snead era, starting in 2012. And no, the other one was not Creed Humphrey. I know the greatest Ram who never played for the team. The other guy was Demetrius Rainey. Spent about 3 seasons with the team. He was more of a Skoranek pick, 7th round, 250 in 2014 out of Tennessee State. He didn't last very long in the NFL, but he was the only other center the Rams have taken in the Snead era. In 6 seasons with the Rams, Allen only appeared in 50 games, starting 32. He got 9 starts in 2019 because he replaced Sullivan. John Sullivan, starting center from 2017, 2018. He was key. He was key in getting that offensive line turned around when McVay arrived. But they let him go. He didn't play again. He retired. And Brian Allen stepped in 2019 and struggled. In fact, he was so bad that I remember Austin Blythe was the starting center in 2020. And then he left because of free agency. And the Rams were in kind of cap hell at that point. And when Brian Allen was talked about being the starting center for the 2021 Rams, Ram fans were groaning. The media was groaning because they remembered this really bad run of 9 games that Allen had in 2019, and they were a disaster. If you remember, the Rams made an abortive attempt to move Austin Corbett from right guard to center very briefly going into that 2021 season that summer, and it just didn't last. And Allen got the job. Everyone was fearful, and Allen ended up starting 16 games, having the best year of his career, plus the Super Bowl and all the playoffs. According to PFF that season, out of 39 centers graded, Brian Allen was 10th best. And so he got that 3-year, 18 rock deal extension with the Rams. And then, of course, last year, 2022, he only appeared in a handful of games. He was injured. Then this past year, Coleman Shelton took his job. So it made sense. It wasn't a lot of money, but if it saves you 5 rocks, it's a big deal, right? And so, yeah, I'm sorry to see him go. I wanted him for depth, but I completely understand where the Rams are on this. It's not a hard thing to figure out. Allen was acquired with a 4th-round pick that the Rams got in the Robert Quinn deal, just to kind of give you connections and stuff. So this was the end of the Robert Quinn thread. The Rams got Robert Quinn in the draft. He did a great job for the Rams. Then they dealt him to the Dolphins in 2018, and one of the picks they got was a 4th-rounder, and Brian Allen was it. And whatever you want to say about Brian Allen, he was the starting center on a Super Bowl champion, right? Not Ken Iman, not Rick Saw, not Doug Smith. It was Brian Allen. And so it was a good run for him. I'm also Michigan State, right? I think that's where Rick Saw played. So the Rams have had a good run with Michigan State centers. With Allen released and Coleman Shelton now an unrestricted free agent at the start of the new league season, which is March 13th, practice squad center Mike McAllister, another undrafted free agent out of Youngstown State, he runs about 6'3", 305. He's the only center under contract for 2024. So, the Rams are going to make a move here. Either Shelton comes back or Jackson Powers Johnson. Jackson Powers Johnson, right? I think that's Tim Burns' boy. And so that'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Cap space. Spot Track lists the Rams cap space. Spot Track is SPOTRAC.com. It does cap spaces for all sports. They are listing the Rams cap space with Allen's release at 39.4. Now, they are working off an estimated league cap of 242 rocks this coming season. Some thoughts are going to be that the base is going to be 243 for NFL teams, which is the cap space for NFL teams is going to be 243 this season. So that's what Spot Track has. So theirs is kind of an estimation. So that's why the Rams have 39.4. Over the cap, which is the one that most people use, lists the cap space at where it is right now, and that's the Rams at 32.5 rocks. The release of Allen makes me think the Rams are, they're going to look for some depth there, obviously, in the draft. But of course, this means Kevin Dotson is serious. They're serious about Kevin Dotson, I think, coming back, right? And they probably want to have the funding available before the free agent bloodbath starts on March 13th. And so that's what I'm assuming. And then there are more needs than just re-signing Kevin Dotson. There's the long ongoing discussion of bringing in an edge performer. A lot of people are pushing Brian Burns. I like to dream big and think Josh Allen, but that's where we are on that. Speaking of restructures around the NFL and other places, the Chargers, and it bears interest. It's interesting because, hey, what's Harbaugh going to do, right? What's Harbaugh and his new GM, and then what are they going to do because they're in cap hell, right? And one of the things that just came up, Corey Linsley, the former Green Bay All-Pro center, who signed that 5-year deal with the Chargers a couple years ago, he agreed to lower his salary to the veterans minimum, and that saves the Chargers 10.2 rocks, because they're cap strapped, right? And the expectation is because of his heart condition is for Linsley to retire. He only appeared in 3 games last year. He's 32, but pretty good for a 5th-round choice in 2014 by the Packers. The Packers always find offensive linemen. And so the rest of his 5 years, $62.5 million deal will be spread out over the 24 and 25 seasons. And so I think this is just the beginning for what the Bolts are going to do in terms of salary cap. Heard a rumor. We're going to talk a little bit more about the 49ers later in the show as we look at the league and the schedule the Rams are playing next year. But there's some rumors. They're kind of abounding in different places on the internet It's not like I'm in the room. I haven't had anybody whisper anything to me. I'm not saying that. But rumors about Bill Belichick possibly going to the 49ers as DC, and that would be interesting. But I'll just leave it there. Number 3, Steeler fan Rob has been in my grill. Steeler fan Rob in Missouri, who's faithful. He's a faithful watcher. He's looking for all those Steeler breadcrumbs. He's constantly in my thread talking about the Steelers and their quarterback position. But he just seems to be reiterating the company line that they don't want to spend the capital or the dough to get one. You've heard the Justin Fields talk, and then it's, well, we're still going to go with Kenny Pickett, maybe bring in a veteran or something. Really, is Gardner Minshew the answer there? I say this to Steeler fan Rob and all Steeler fans. TJ Watt is a great player, and maybe he should have been Defensive Player of the Year. I ain't taking anything away from you on that one. But he's 30 this fall. Cam Hayward's turning 35. Mika Fitzpatrick, for a frontline safety, is turning 28, and he's got a lot of mileage on him. Alex Highsmith is turning 27. That's not a problem right now, but he's approaching his peak. But they got him on a really good contract, right? Steelers also have a full complement of draft picks this year and next. And, they could also stand to deal one of their punky receivers who refuses to block, why wouldn't you try to make a deal to move up from 20 to a little closer and take a run at a quarterback, because you need a quarterback. That's what's killing you in terms of going to the next place. And stop with the, Steeler football. Steeler football, great. You got all those rings, but you haven't even been to the big game since 2010. And I know you got winning records, but don't you want to get over the hump? You got to get over the hump, and you got to make a move right now. All right. I thought this was interesting. The Lions signed a CFL import, Matt Betts. He's 6'3", 250. He's going to be turning 29 this year. He spent 2019 preseason with the Bears, and then went back to Canada, which is where he's from. Had a breakout year last year with the BC Lions, 18 sacks. That's pretty good. Of course, it's Canada. But the Lions were in need of some help on the other side of Aiden Hutchinson. And I'm going to say it's a reach, because you haven't had too much from the CFL crossover in a lot of years. But it's Brad Holmes, and Brad Holmes is a great talent evaluator. And if Betts is ready, maybe the Lions have found a counterpart for Aiden Hutchinson. Best modern example that kind of fits Matt Betts. I wonder if anyone remembers him from CFL to NFL as former Penn State linebacker Cameron Wake. He was undrafted and went to the CFL in 2005. And then he came to the Dolphins in 2009, played 10 seasons there, 11 seasons in the league total, finished up with Tennessee. But he recorded 105 sacks, starting at the age of 27, 5 Pro Bowl appearances, 1 All-Pro. He was about 6'3", 263. Cameron Wake had a great career. It's been kind of lost to history there, but he started in the CFL. And so just something to think about there in terms of there is a little bit of precedent. And it'll be interesting to see how Betts plays out, because as Ram fans, you got to have a lot of respect for Brad Holmes. He knows what he's doing. Fortunately, we got a guy named Les Snead who knows what he's doing too. All right, let's get to the commercial. I'm Judge Rosen. I was a sports writer for 21 years, and now I do RamView thanks to our sponsors at Kistler Law. And I write books. My books are found on Amazon, and you can just type in Joe Tarosian, and you'll see my books. I've got 2 high school football novels there that were well received. I got a 3rd football novel coming out called Game Day in the Ram Cave. I hope to get it out soon, and then other books there. And that's how I support myself, through RamView and my books. In my day job, I pastor a very small church in Burbank called Burbank Faith Nazarene, and you can see us right here on YouTube at Burbank Faith Virtual, as well across social media, burbankfaithvirtual.com. And so that's my day job, but I do this, and my background, my training. Some pastors are teachers, some of them are psychologists. I was a sports writer, and proud to say for 21 years. One of the founding guys at Mid-Valley Sports. This guys, Tim and Dwayne, are still in the room. They cover the Chargers up close. So with that said, let's see where we're at this afternoon. Okay, Brian B. Thank you, Brian B. I don't think we've met before. I like the NFL better. I stopped watching the NBA. I agree, the NBA is weak. Yeah, it's softball, right? Not softball, soft ball. And thank you, Brian B, for contributing there. I appreciate it. Tim Burns, NBA has no defense, hand checks, no standing in the paint, created bad basketball. I think they make so much money. And I know this is terrible. You want people to make as much money as you can, but they make so much money. And it's all pretty much all guaranteed, right? That they've lost their incentives. And it's disgusting when someone's making 40 rocks a year to say, well, give me another $500,000 and then I'll care about the midseason tournament. No, there's really something here where somehow they have to find a way for the league and the owners and the coaches to rise back above the players. And I don't see where that's happening. I'd like to see a new league where they play basketball. They did everything to favor the athlete. They've done nothing to favor the game of basketball. And that's what's lost. I'm watching tremendous athletes with great skill sets, but I'm not really seeing basketball. And if they were playing by basketball rules and stuff that we saw that was good basketball, they couldn't hang with these teams. The dynasty of the Golden State Warriors never would have happened, 20 years ago or late 90s or through the 80s. Those teams would have been closed down because what the style of ball the Warriors played, a fundamental team would have chewed them up. Yeah, they're shooting threes and the analytics says shoot the threes, but I can guarantee you with the defense and the lack of size the Warriors had, any of those teams from the 80s and 90s, they wouldn't have scored a two-pointer 50% of the time. They probably would have scored a two-pointer 80% of the time. And that kind of overcomes the analytic of hitting the three-point shot when you're scoring every time down. I'd kind of like to see Kareem in this era, right? Shooting that sky hook. But anyway, USA expat had an NBA comment. The NBA where the rule book goes out the window at playoff time. There you go. Iman, Saul, Smith, of those three greats, Saul was my favorite. Hey, I got no problem with Rich Saul, their USA expat. I thought it was interesting that both Brian Allen and Rick Saul went to Michigan State. I didn't realize that until I had loaded up the show. Tim Burns, I'm trying to look outside Lata if we go edge. That's the UCLA guy in the first round. And Trice from Washington has speed and power and is fast. If second round is available, still Chop Robinson. Hey, I'll tell you this, Tim Burns. Chop Robinson is appearing in the end of the first round in a lot of mock drafts right now. Yeah, it's just weird how those guys keep jumping. But yeah, Chop Robinson is climbing. Michael Negretti. Hello, Pastor Joe T. Oh, man. How you doing? Thank you so much. You're discovering me. Tim Burns, love the Outsiders kit. Yeah, thank you so much, guys. Okay, when someone calls me out of my other life here, I get a little thrown off a little bit. Thank you, Mike. Rams update. Former Rams assistant Thomas Brown, kind of hot candidate, went to be an OC last year, is now the Bears passing game coordinator, reuniting him with former Rams passing game coordinator Shane Waldron, who left to be the OC with the Seahawks, moved on and is now the OC with the Bears, and now Brown has Waldron's old job. And this one I thought was interesting, no connection to the Rams. Former USC running back Chad Morton was named Bears' new running back coach, and I thought that was interesting. I hadn't thought of that name in years. Of course, we got the news on the Rams naming Giff Smith, Greg Williams, Rob Calabrese, Nate Scheelhaas, and Chili Davis. Not Chili Davis, the switch hitter, who I really liked Chili Davis in the MLB. John Stryker is game management coordinator, and Dave Ragone as quarterback coach. And I do remember Dave Ragone kind of floating around the NFL, and I vaguely remember him having a cup of coffee with the Rams. So, one of those guys will be a head coach in 3 seasons somewhere, because that's the precedent that comes with working with Sean McVay. So, I would question these coaching hires, maybe be a little more, study them a little more scrupulously, just dive into them. But this isn't Jeff Fisher. This isn't Scott Linehan. This isn't Steve Spagnuolo. This is Sean McVay, and 2 Super Bowls in 6 seasons gives you a lot of runway. And so we're going to give Sean McVay that runway, and hopefully these guys can turn into something special. All right, looking at the draft, Daniel Jeremiah, who put out a mock draft at the end of January and had the Rams taking Leitu Tatu out of UCLA, as Tim Burns mentioned there. He did his most recent mock draft, and I'll go over some of the familiars. He has Caleb Williams and Drake May going 1-2. But unlike most recent mock drafts, Daniel Jeremiah has New England taking Marvin Harrison Jr. 3rd overall. Most of the mock drafts we're seeing have Harrison going 4th as a lock all across the board to Arizona. Now, it's a deep wide receiver draft, but you wonder, what would the Patriots be thinking if they drafted Marvin Harrison? Are they thinking free agent quarterback? And, who's probably the best guy out there? Well, maybe a Kirk Cousins type, or maybe they're thinking quarterback in the 2nd round. It'll just be interesting to see. He also has Malik Neighbors going number 4 to Arizona, the guy from LSU. And Jeremiah has Jaden Daniels falling to the Giants at number 6. I don't know if the Giants can handle whiffing on another quarterback. I'm just not big on Jaden Daniels. He didn't win any monster games. He just put up monster numbers. And we'll have to break down Jaden Daniels at some point this draft season. I'm just not big on Jaden Daniels. And again, I admit it all the time. I've got post-Arizona State syndrome. I didn't like him at Arizona State. So it's still with me, even though he had a much better career at LSU. Interesting, Jeremiah has J.J. McCarthy going 8th to Atlanta. And Talisi Fuaga, the Oregon State guy that Ram fans are interested in. They have him going to the Jets at number 10. Nate Wiggins, who a lot of folks had projected to the Rams, they have him going to Indy at number 15. Wiggins is interesting. I've seen Wiggins at this spot in the draft, and I've seen Wiggins at the back end of the 1st round. Quinyon Mitchell, the darling of the Senior Bowl, Jeremiah has him going number 17 to Jacksonville, and that's about right. He's between 17 and 19 in every mock draft we're seeing. This mock draft has Brock Bowers dropping to number 18 to Cincy, and I think Joe Burrow would love that. And then, of course, Tim Burns' guy, our great friend Tim Burns up in NorCal, maybe the only non-49er fan up in NorCal, his guy, Jackson Powers Johnson, the center from Oregon, he's listed as going to the Rams at number 19. So I thought that was interesting. Troy Fontenot, number 20 to the Steelers. Leitu out of UCLA at number 21 going to the Dolphins. And Cooper DeJean, who I've seen in the top 10, the Iowa corner. I've seen him now at the back end of the draft at number 25. Now, an interesting note about Jeremiah's mock draft, it did not have Kool-Aid McKinstry in the 1st round. And a lot of mock drafts have had him at number 19 to the Rams, or a little bit higher. It also didn't have a Bo Nix in the 1st round. And then the other name that has completely fallen out of the 1st round, whose stock has completely dropped, is Michael Penix. And I haven't seen a mock draft in him in about 10 days, him anywhere in the 1st round. And here's the interesting thing. People are saying they're worried about Penix's history with injuries, but a lot of these experts don't seem to have a problem with UCLA's Leitu, who had some serious injuries in his past. Just something to think about. Background on Jackson Powers Johnson, who I would not be opposed to drafting. He's 6'3", 334. They say he's excellent in pass protection, and he plays with attitude, right? We love the attitude guys. We want people that are nasty, people that are mean. Maybe we don't want them going full Richie Incognito, but we do want them nasty and mean. And it says that he has above average upper body strength, right? Taking a quote there from Jeremiah from an NFC scouting director, says regards to Jackson Powers Johnson, which is a great name, that he's tough, smart, and strong. And I just don't overthink it with centers. When you've got those elements, you usually have a starter. So that would be a great pick. Tim Burns would be all over it. Now, they take Jackson Powers Johnson, Mr. Burns, and you can nail the Rams' 2nd round pick. I don't know. We're going to have to get you some gear. Rams have 11 picks. Right now it's 19, 51, 83, and 100, roughly in the top 100. Those are the first 100 picks. And you want as many of those as you can get. So names, Leitu out of UCLA, Jeremiah at the end of January, Nate Wiggins, Lance Zierlein had him, Talisi Fuaga, CBS Sports had him, Kool-Aid McKinstry, the Ringer, Daniel Kelly had him, Quinyon Mitchell, Toledo, Yahoo had him, Leitu, Rams Wire had him last week, and then on Monday, and then today, Jackson Powers Johnson with Daniel Jeremiah's second mock. I love just looking at these things just because keeps names fresh, kind of gives you an idea of where these players are trending. All right, looking at the Rams schedule, we're just going to focus on the 49ers for next year. They have free agents across the board in Randy Gregory, Chase Young, Sam Darnold, Javon Kinlaw, Tashawn Gibson, Cleveland Farrell, who found some new life in Frisco after leaving the Raiders, and starting right guard John Feliciano, who graded out really well. They're all free agents. In the draft, it's very clear they're going to be looking offensive line and cornerback. But looking at that 49ers offensive line, which kind of let them down in the Super Bowl, Trent Williams is great, but he's older by the day. He's got a little bit of the Havenstein in him. He does not Havenstein, the Whitworth in him. He doesn't seem to age. But there is going to be a time, right? Left guard is wide open. Right tackle, Colton McKivitz. These are issues for the 49ers. And there's a hole at right guard due to free agency. So they need help along the offensive line, and they need help at corner. We as Ram fans, we saw their weaknesses in week 2 at the corner. And, maybe it was, as I think it was Kenneth Wright, the last episode, you talk about getting pressure on the quarterback will make your secondary better. Well, after week 2 against the Rams, they started bringing in the Randy Gregorys. They made the trade for Chase Young. And you know what? They didn't get any better, and not in Frisco anyway. And now, now the whole problem was Steve Wilkes, right? Steve Wilkes was the reason they weren't very good, even though, they were in the Super Bowl, right? Just something to think about there. The 49ers, again, I would expect them to be a good team, but I do not expect them to be better. And when they have problems next year, I don't really think it's going to be Brock Purdy's fault. Besides division games, they've got the Bears, Lions, Jets, Chiefs, Cowboys, and Patriots at home. Lions and Chiefs won't be a walkover. And the Cowboys are going to be competitive. Their away games are the Packers, Vikings, Dolphins, Bills, Bucks. That Bills game will be interesting. When is it played? They struggled there this year. When are they going to be playing the Packers? They're going to struggle there in Lambeau. Vikings are indoors because they care about hosting Super Bowls instead of winning Super Bowls. And then the Bucks. The Bucks are a promising team, but I think they really need to make sure they bring Baker Mayfield back. So just something to think about for the 49ers going forward. I could see them getting to 10 wins, but I don't see them guaranteed 10 wins like I do see the Rams. I see the Rams in double digits, possibly at 12 wins. And we're going to look at each team they're playing next year. The Rams are playing next year. Just keep on talking about it so we're prepped going into next season. All right. A little bit of Ram history. We're going to get that taken care of here.
It was a stone groove, my man.
It's going to be a stone groove when we get the dates in. On this date, February 21st, 2001, the Rams said goodbye. They waived DeMarco Farr and Ray Agnew Jr. Ray Agnew Jr. was a 3-year starter for the Rams. He had been a first-round pick of the Patriots in 1990, 10th overall, and he was okay. He didn't have a great career for being 10th overall. DeMarco Farr, on the other hand, was an undrafted, undersized free agent out of Washington, and he appeared from 1994 to 2000 in 100 games for the Rams, started 88 of them, made the Pro Bowl in 1999, the year the Rams won the Super Bowl. He recorded 36 and a half sacks and three picks from his defensive tackle position. And those were on some teams that weren't very good. And that outstanding postseason he had in 1999, in 3 games, he recorded 12 tackles, 11 solo, and a sack. And of course, DeMarco Farr works for the Rams now, and everyone knows him as a broadcaster. And of course, the bulk of his career was played in St. Louis. I'd love to hear how St. Louis fans feel about DeMarco Farr, but he's kind of, again, he's that tweener. Everyone knows I love the Rams winning the Super Bowl in 99. I accept it. It's not because it happened in St. Louis. I'm going to deny it. But he's one of those guys that kind of gets lost somewhere in there. And DeMarco Farr had a nice 7-year NFL career. On this date in 2023, last year, the Rams hired special teams coordinator Chase Blackburn. It'll be interesting to see how that team, that unit does in 2024, because Sean McVay brought him back even after all those struggles. Tomorrow is February 22nd, and we're not going to be on the air, but I want to talk about some anniversaries that are starting tomorrow. Rams hired Lionel Taylor First guy to catch 100 passes in the old AFL with the Denver Broncos. Rams hired him as their wide receiver coach. And in 2005, the Rams released Chris Chandler. Chris Chandler spent the last season that the Rams were in LA. He shared quarterback duties with Chris Miller. And then he moved on after that and eventually led the Falcons to the Super Bowl in 1998. He returned to the Rams as a backup in 2004, his final season, and was released on this day in 2005. Or I'm sorry, February 22nd, 2005. And then this was the one that I wanted to get into. Happy birthday to Ron Bartell, who turns 42 today. Ron Bartell was a cornerback the Rams drafted out of Howard. Second round, 50th overall in 2005. 6'1", 210. Love that size for a corner. And he was with the Rams from 2005 through 2011, although he only played one game in 2011. That was 7 seasons with the Rams. He was actually a guy that got a second contract, right, in 2009, but the neck injury derailed him. He appeared in 89 games, started 64, picked off 8 passes, but why would you throw his way when you got Ty Hill to throw against, right? In a dreadful decade of drafting, Bartell was one of the Rams' few bright spots. He went to the Raiders in 2012 and ended his career with a cup of coffee in Detroit that same year. But what I wanted to make note of was the Rams' 2005 draft. We talked about the 1975 draft, right, where it was just off the charts, right? We talked about France. We talked about Hara. We talked about Rod Perry, Monty Jackson. We talked about Mike Fanning. We talked about how they drafted a center out of Washington State named Jeff Reese, and they ended up turning him into a second-round pick that allowed them to take Nolan Cromwell a few years later. Leroy Jones, who was turned into a second-round pick. He couldn't make the team. That ended up being Billy Waddy, and most of these guys played key roles in the Super Bowl 14 team. But the Rams draft in the first decade of this century was brutal, but 2005 might stand out a little bit. Now I'm going to say a bad word. I don't want you guys to tune out, but it's going to be a bad word, and so hang with me. In 2005, of course, the Rams 19th overall out of Auburn took Alex Barron. So stick with me. I know my numbers are going to drop after I use that name, but that same draft included Bartell in the second round, OJ Atogwe, Richie Incognito, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, in the hands of maybe a better coaching staff, a better organization, that might have turned into something. But it is interesting. So I went and I looked this up, and I think I shared this last year, but I'll start sharing it again. From 2000 through 2009, 10 years, 10 drafts, the Rams drafted 86 players. 86 players. Only 8 of them became real contributors in the NFL. I'm going to throw them off to you, and I'll give you my thoughts. Ryan Pickett, Adam Archuleta, Steven Jackson, Richie Incognito, Atogwe, Bartell, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Chris Long, and James Laurinaitis. Do you know how many of those 86 draft picks made a Pro Bowl while they were with the Rams? Steven Jackson, Laurinaitis, and Chris Long. Now, I bring that up. The Pro Bowl is not the end-all, be-all, but anybody can get to the Pro Bowl. It seems like sometimes if you're modestly good, somewhere they're going to stick you in there with the Pro Bowl, right? I mean, come on, Tyler Huntley, Mike Barella, right? You're going to get in the Pro Bowl at some point, right? But only Steven Jackson. Now, Richie Incognito made 4 Pro Bowls after he moved on and played in Miami and Buffalo, but not with the Rams. Ryan Pickett was just okay for the Rams, left as a free agent, had a better career with the Green Bay Packers. Archuleta played well with the Rams and got a big fat contract with the Redskins and flamed out there. Atogwe and Bartell, they were nice pieces. And Ryan Fitzpatrick had an amazing career in the NFL, even though he was drafted in the 7th round by the Rams. Now, Chris Long was not a miss, but for being second overall, was it second overall or third overall? You know, he wasn't Jack Youngblood, right? You know, ever since Jack Youngblood left, from Bill Hawkins to Grant Windstrom, to all these guys in between, Adam Carricker, Chris Long. Rams were always looking for the next Jack Youngblood. And I'm not going to say Chris Long was bad, but he wasn't Fred Dryer and he wasn't Jack Youngblood. There, I'll leave that there. Good player, solid player. James Laurinaitis was good. but James Laurinaitis wasn't great. I was sorry to see both Long and Laurinaitis go because their last season with the Rams were 2015, and that's not real long careers. I think 2008 to 2015, I think Long was what 8 years with the Rams. Laurinaitis was 7 years with the Rams. And, Long got his rings after he left, but Laurinaitis really didn't play again. And so it just leaves a little bit, man, we missed on a lot of draft picks. Jimmy Kennedy, Damone Lewis, Trung Candidate, Ty Hill, Carricker. Do you want me to go on? Jason Smith. I know. It's brutal, but that's how you kill a franchise. That's how you go from 2004, was it 2005, 2004, all the way to 2017 without making the playoffs if you have a whole draft class like that. And I'm sorry I had to mention Allen Cabare's name, but how do you only score on 8 of 86? If I'm allowed to here for a second, guys, I don't know if I got any more questions. I'm not looking at the screen right now, but let me just look at the Snead era and his first draft in 2012. Michael Brockers, we'll say that was a hit. Janoris Jenkins, we'll say that was a hit. Trumaine Johnson, we'll say that was a hit. Greg Zuerlein, we'll say that was a hit. In 2013, I'm going to skip Tavon Austin being a hit, but I'm going to say Alec Ogletree and TJ McDonald were hits. They became solid starters for the Rams. That's 6 players right there. 2014, Aaron Donald and LaMarcus Joyner. That's 8 players right there. 2015, Todd Gurley, Rob Havenstein. That's 10, right? 2016, Jared Goff, Tyler Higbee. I'm going to throw in Pharoh Cooper because he made a Pro Bowl. That's about 13? Is that what that is? 2017, Gerald Everett, Cooper Kupp, John Johnson, Josh Reynolds, Samson Ebukam. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What is that? Close to 20 already? That's 18. Joseph Noteboom in 2018. Brian Allen won a Super Bowl with him. The Rams got starting time out of Micah Kaiser, and Ogbo Okoronkwo has gone on to have a career. And I would say they even got contributions from Sebastian Joseph Day. In 2019, Taylor Rapp, Darrell Henderson, Greg Gaines, Dave Edwards, Nick Scott were all on the field and contributing significant snaps in Super Bowl 56. And then, of course, Cam Akers was in that Super Bowl. Van Jefferson, Jordan Fuller, we'll put them in there. And so these are hits. Ernest Jones, Ben Skoranek. We're seeing Bobby Brown come around a little bit. And then, of course, Jacoby Durant has been starting. Quinton Lake has been starting. Darian Kendrick has been starting. Do you get my drift here? And then let's look at the 6 guys from last year's draft. That's Les Snead. That's Les Snead since 2012. You're talking close to 30 players that have hit in his draft classes, where Rams only had 8 in an entire decade out of 86 players drafted. And a whole lot more of them were first-round picks. Wanted to get that through there, guys. Thanks for allowing me to do that. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions here. Tim Burns, 49ers suck. I checked my records. I don't know if they suck, but I will say they suck. Geez nuts. Niners will be good, but their window to win the big one is barely open now. Fully agree with you, Geez nuts. We were talking about that, and that's why that loss was so sweet, right? Rams winning the Super Bowl is the best. Second best besides the Rams winning the Super Bowl is the 49ers losing the Super Bowl. And even though I don't like it, there was a little nervous time at the Forum, losing on the last play of the game. Fantastic, right? It was fantastic. Geez nuts. I heard the Rams are going to waive Allen. We need to bolster the offensive line. Yep, they did that today. And and I like Daniel Jeremiah's draft, right? Jackson Powers Johnson. Good for the Rams there. Geez nuts again. It's good to have you back, Geez nuts. I haven't had a chance to talk to you for a while. Niner fans will need to hang on to their VCRs to watch their glory years. Praise be. Steve Ramirez, super sports writer from the SGV. What do you think of the Zach Wilson rumors? I'd rather stick with Rents. Amen. Please let that happen. We talked about this, I think, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it was last week, where I want Carson Wentz. Now, I hope Raheem Morris doesn't say, hey, man, I can make you a starter here because my quarterbacks really stink here in Atlanta, and he takes an offer to be a starter again. I hope Wentz, thinking that he's made his big money, that he needs to rehabilitate himself and spend another year with Sean McVay and let that magic work, and I hope he'll stay. The reason I want that is because we know Carson Wentz can win NFL games. We know that. He's been an accomplished quarterback in this league, and he's not being messed up because of his body. He's kind of messed up between the ears, and hopefully he can be resuscitated by Sean McVay. Zach Wilson, maybe if this was 2016, maybe if it was 2014, maybe if it was 2013, but the Rams are in a Super Bowl window. This isn't a time for remedial quarterbacking, right? I don't want to bring a guy in that I hope he can play in the NFL. I wouldn't mind it if they brought him in for nothing and he didn't play this year. Rams don't draft a quarterback and they release Stetson Bennett and he's practically a practice squad player. If Zach Wilson's ego can handle that, but I don't want him as the backup quarterback. This isn't a time for remedial quarterbacking because your Super Bowl window is open. Amen. Amen. All right. Let's see here. Kenneth Wright, hit the like button. Did you hit the like button? Thank you. Thank you, Kenneth Wright. If you hit the like button, or if you hit the like button because you want Zach Wilson to come here, let us know. Tim Burns, la, 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 la. Okay. USA expat. I think that was regarding Zach Wilson. Met Jack Youngblood once, first impression. Definitely a Florida tan, laugh out loud. Hey, I never met Jack Youngblood, but I heard he is a great person, and that's what you want to know, right? Kevin Green was the closest we got to a Youngblood or Dryer, although he was a linebacker. Hey, I agree on that about Kevin Green. Yeah, he was kind of a different player. He was more of the modern edge, the zip, the one of the 3-4 scheme. And of course, they brought in Jeff Fisher and Kevin Green had the worst year of his career, right? Tim Burns, Carson Markle, help me with that one. You threw me off. Okay, I think we got this in. I thank you guys for sticking around with me. And I thank you for everyone that's signed up recently. Our numbers have really taken a huge pop, and I did not expect it. In fact, I expected numbers to dip during the off season just because, people kind of move on and not everybody, not everybody's interested in football until the ball's in the air. But thank you so much for clicking on. If you get a chance, check us out on Spotify. Our numbers are pretty bad there, but they're good here and they're building. So God bless, guys. Thank you so much for the support. And if you have any thoughts, if you have a mock draft, send it to me or post it in the comments. I will talk about it in the next show, and I'll put it right next to Dano's, and you can send me a mock draft. Now, we all know it's okay if you send it now. We know things are going to change once free agency starts, but the important thing is names being raised to the surface because I don't like being surprised on draft day. And hey, Nakua was a surprise to me. And so we don't have to be experts and we don't have to be Nostradamus, but we want to know. We want to have a clue about who the Rams are drafting. So every time you guys do a mock draft, it forces me to go in there and study just a little bit more, and probably everybody else as well. And so cool. I think we're good. And all right, I think we are. Guys, if you have another question, throw it at me. If not, we're going to bail out of here. I'm Joe Terosian. This is RamView. Hit like, hit subscribe, and we will talk to you soon. God bless.